And blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning here. By the way, I don't really think we get the New Yorker magazine, but those of you that travel, maybe you go to Salt Lake or Denver, the cover of the latest issue of the New Yorker magazine features Martin Luther King Jr. taking a knee next to Colin Kaepernick. The free agent quarterback decided to take a knee during the national anthem. Alveda King, by the way, told this to Fox News. Here's what she had to say about it.
Martin Luther King Jr. and my dad, Reverend A.D. King, and there are pictures out there on the net of them both taking the knee along with other civil rights leaders. But when they took that knee, it was in prayer, in repentance for their own sins, for the sins of others, for the nation, forgiving others who had harmed them, and then asking God to help this nation.
And there we have it. A very different taking the knee, if you will, than what we see out of Colin Kaepernick. One self-centered, one forgiving. Again, comparing Dr. King to Colin Kaepernick. Well, the New Yorker, again, they like to stir things up. They like to do these crazy things. You know what I'm saying? And they're succeeding. It is clearly strange. Again, coming up, we will speak with our great friend Dan Stein from FAIR. In addition to that, Congressman Labrador will join us as well. DACA on the docket, if you will, and whether or not the Dreamers should, in fact, get the amnesty. By the way, we told you at KIDOTalkRadio.com, Sheriff Arpaio now wants to be Senator Arpaio. And look, like I said, 85 is the new 45, right?
Well, I want to give back to the people of Arizona and support our president, Trump, on his agendas, his policies. I know I have the background, which nobody talks about. I've been in law enforcement 55 years and been serving my country 60 years.
Wow. And you think at 85, Sheriff Joe, who had the prisons, who had the pink underwear, who gave the inmates the bologna sandwiches, now wants to run for Senate, now wants to back up the president. It's crazy. I think it's crazy in a good way, right? And maybe there just really isn't any retirement age anymore. Now, some people will say whether or not Sheriff Joe can do it at 85, he sounds pretty good to me. In fact, he went on to talk a little bit about what he has to offer.
I want to go to Washington, be independent, and do what I can to help our country, our state, and the president. It's that simple. I have a lot to offer.
There we have it. There we have it, our great friend, Sheriff Joe. Much more on that at KIDOTalkRadio.com. Kevin Miller in the morning here. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Don't forget, coming up very soon, the Canyon County Kids Fair. But first, we go to Dan Stein of FAIR. Dan, good morning.
Morning. How are you?
Good to have you on. You're on with Kevin Miller here at KIDO Talk Radio. So, Dan, what's the latest with DACA and the wall?
Well, of course, Trump was at this very public White House meeting yesterday with the swamp critters that he promised he was going to mow down. And he told them, hey, you guys come up with whatever you come up with and I'll sign it, which sounds an awful lot different than the guy on the trail. And he talked about a bill of love, which sounds a lot like Jeb Bush's act of love. So, it's kind of hard to know exactly where Trump is. But maybe he's just the great disruptor, or maybe he's just a genius who operates at a level that none of us can understand.
A lot of people were praising this thing. What do you think? How do you think it's going to play out?
Well, the people who are praising Trump are mostly establishment wing Republicans and Democrats, but even the the Washington Post, they didn't like it. They criticize everything he does. But if you actually try to work out a bipartisan agreement, all the evidence is the Democrats don't see they need to give up anything. Now, this judge in the Ninth Circuit in California yesterday, right, he apparently enjoined Trump's cessation of the DACA program and now forcing them to continue renewing applications. Well, does that take all the pressure off Trump to actually do anything with Democrats on DACA? And maybe they can focus on a partisan bill that will actually do the things Donald Trump promised when he ran for office. which is, in our view, build a wall, right? Interior enforcement, worksite enforcement, E-Verify, mandatory verify, defund sanctuary cities, reform the immigration court system and asylum system so we don't have all these backlogs, and get rid of chain migration. Those are the things he promised the American people. And, you get all that stuff done, get it through Congress, sign the bills, and you want to talk about maybe an adjustment for some people here illegally. We're not unreasonable, but, hey, you lead with what you promised the people.
Let's get back to this meeting yesterday, Dan. Your thoughts on that it was televised, and I did see the interaction between Senator Feinstein and Mike McCarthy coming in to save the president.
Well, Feinstein, of course, said, why don't we just do DACA first? Of course, she's pretty shrewd. Feinstein's very deliberative in the way she asks questions, trying to get Trump to make a mistake, which he did by saying, yeah, that's a great idea. And then they all said, well, that's not a great idea, Mr. President. Why do you want to destroy all your bargaining leverage? So, in the end, Trump, who's supposed to be such a great negotiator, it didn't seem like he had the kind of command of the facts. I'm sure Stephen Miller was sitting in a corner having a heart attack. And maybe there's a method to Trump's madness. I've always felt that I've understood Trump, and I understand how he operates. But in the end, the only thing I can figure is that Trump is trying to get the Democrats out there in the light of day and believes that transparency will work to his advantage. Because if it appears that the Democrats are unwilling to support the common sense enforcement and legal reforms that, frankly, most Americans support, maybe he thinks that he'll be able to somehow corral them into voting for something they normally would not. But I don't know what the evidence for that is.
Well, I think people are very, you look at the cover of the Washington Examiner today, immigration hawks fear two-phase DACA deal could lead to Trump amnesty. Your thoughts, Dan Stein?
Well, look, at this point, Trump is an unproven commodity in terms of negotiating. What's he going to demand? And the point is immigration politics is asymmetrical. The special interests, the foreign governments, the multinationals, the cheap labor users, the multi-billionaires, they all want to mow down America's borders. George Soros, they want to destroy American sovereignty. Then you have the left that just wants more immigrant votes no matter what. Legal, illegal, they don't care. So you're left with a poor, beleaguered average American wondering who's representing his or her interests. And that's where groups like FAIR come in. But, we're massively outgunned financially and politically by these, the big tech companies and others that just don't care. So how do you overcome that? The only way you overcome that is with massive public engagement, popular support. And that's why this is a time to get involved because, if Trump blows this thing and we wind up with another mass amnesty with chain migration and all their relatives, it's a Trojan horse and we'll never get control of this.
Scary thoughts that Donald Trump was supposed to answer these questions. What about the trade-off, the DACA deal for the wall? What do you make of that?
Well, that's not – look, first of all, unless you appropriate all the money for the wall and wait until it's done before you actually trigger DACA, you didn't get anything. Because the Democrats, for whatever reason, they don't want a wall. They don't want any physical structures. They talk about maybe a fence. But remember, we had the multi-billion-dollar boondoggle under Janet Napolitano, the so-called virtual high-tech fence that didn't work.
Right.
Well, a wall is a wall. People understand a wall. They can see the bricks. They can look at it, admire it, put graffiti on it, whatever. They want to see a wall. Build a wall. It has a nice ring, sort of like lock her up, right? Everybody tips
right
off the tongue. 3 words, right? Basically, do it right. If you're going to build something, build it. And naturally, the Democrats feel that that's a marquee issue for Trump, and so they don't want him to do that. They're not willing to trade DACA for anything. Basically, the only thing the Democrats are willing to do is go waste more taxpayer money on ineffective enforcement procedures in exchange for amnesty now and all their relatives in the future.
Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. So getting back to your original point, if the judge, by the way, Dan, you're an attorney, so if you could give us some free legal guidance here. Everyone knows, and even President Obama admitted that DACA was unconstitutional. Yet here you have a federal judge inhibiting the commander-in-chief from eliminating something within a timetable that is unconstitutional. How does that work?
Well, it works when you have a lawless judiciary, when you have judges that are using their position on the bench to pursue a political agenda. They issue these injunctions knowing that the administration will have to laboriously appeal to get them overturned, and that can take a long period of time. just like the travel ban. It's unfortunate, but the lack of discipline in the judicial sphere and the legal profession, it starts with the Supreme Court. But when judges feel that they can just turn around and make up law, that nobody's going to be savvy enough to figure out that the opinion is built on a foundation of sand, they issue these injunctions on the strength of Becerra basically saying, your Attorney General, State Attorney General, saying, people are going to be inconvenienced if you take away their work authorization. So therefore, they show irreparable harm, and you balance that against the government's interest, which is allegedly a bureaucrat who has a stamp, a rubber stamp. And, of course, the judge goes, well, obviously weighing the balance of the equities. I mean, clearly these people who have work authorization are going to be inconvenienced, but a bureaucrat, what's the problem there? So we'll issue an injunction. And they'll throw in a few paragraphs of allegedly legal reasoning claiming it is a misreading of the law, or the president's always had this authority to basically rewrite the immigration law and let in millions of people without regard to the limits established by Congress. And so, therefore, the president has to turn around and appeal this thing. Well, of course, politically, that takes all the pressure off the Democrats, because now they basically can say, oh, well, I mean, since it's not expiring anymore, why do we have to give the president anything?
Indeed, of course, it takes the heat off the Republicans to actually make a deal then.
Well, it takes the heat off the Democrats to actually give Trump anything he wants.
I don't think
so. In the end, it's you wonder why our system doesn't work. If we're going to accept an imperial judiciary that takes away from Congress, president, and the American people the right to decide who can come into this country, we're not a democracy anymore.
Our great friend Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. Very, very frustrated this morning, sir.
Well, I can tell in the tone of my voice that I'm frustrated, because in the end, you have a lot of smug elitists in this country who don't realize that our freedoms and democracy are completely in jeopardy under, in the hands of these institutions that are no longer serving the American people. These are people here illegally. They are illegal aliens. They have no right to be in the United States. They never had any right to be in the U.S. They're citizens of other countries with all the rights and privileges of citizenship in those countries. And then you have, a president who's simply trying to do what he thinks the law requires and faithfully carry out his duties. And you have judge after judge issuing these invidious, discreditable injunctions, knowing for the sole purpose of trying to stop Trump's agenda. And naturally, that's one of the reasons. But the polarization in this country is part of the reason now we have this divided judiciary. You have some judges who basically faithfully interpret the law, and others who just basically make it up as they go along. And I don't understand how the American people can continue to support a judiciary that basically doesn't work and takes away our democratic liberties to decide what ought to be decided by the elected branches of government. These judges are not accountable to anyone, Kevin, and yet they do these kinds of things. And Trump sits there going, wow, I thought I had actually some power. Well, apparently the only power he has is to let people come into the country without regard to the law.
Dan Stein joining us from FAIR. So, Dan, what's the call to action?
Well, the call to action right now is basically to, you have to let Congress know that they don't support amnesty. You don't support DACA. No DACA amnesty, period. Forget it. I think the play has to be now is total opposition, any form of amnesty of any kind. That unless Trump gets everything he wants, pretty much that he promised the American people, there's no deals. Nobody's going to support any deals, because the only way we're going to get the things Trump promised is if Trump's people have our full support. We need to support the things that Trump promised the American people very clearly, not, support deals based on, maybe getting 20% of what he promised in exchange for a big amnesty program. I mean, let's face it, if Congress tries to limit a DACA amnesty, there's going to be some judges that will turn around and open it wide open, right?
Exactly.
But, I mean, you can't just give up. You can't just give up. The borders need to be properly controlled. Trump's made a lot of progress. He's done a lot of stuff on the administrative front that he could do, repealing regulations, bad regulations, improving border security. He's done a lot of great stuff, and he has some good people there who honestly understand what needs to be done, like Stephen Miller in the White House, and there's some other folks there. He needs more people than he has, but he's got good people. But if we don't stand firmly behind what he's doing and giving him positive support when he says the right thing, and at the same time making it clear, I mean, frankly, in my view, Kevin, Trump very strongly jeopardized the chances of the Republicans keeping the House in 2018. And for that matter, his own reelection in 2020. Why? Those people who came out and voted for Trump, who voted for Obama in 2012, in 2016, they voted for Trump this time around. It was because of the immigration position. You take that away, you make Trump indistinguishable from, the Democrat, right? Oprah, she said, yeah, she'll mouth the usual platitudes about, of course, we have to secure our borders. But, I mean, if he's going to sound like Jeb Bush, illegal immigration is an act of love, he wants a bill of love, Kevin, this is not the guy people voted for.
Talk about the bait and switch, Dan Stein.
Well, you talk tough. You bluster swagger with a 10-gallon hat through the primaries, knock out, low-energy Jeb and Lion Cruz, Lion Ted. And you get in the White House and you basically sit down with all the swamp critters you talked about running against, and you said, hey, you guys figure it out. Whatever you send me, I'm good. I'm sorry. Is that what he promised?
Nope.
Anyway.
Dan Stein, we appreciate you. The FAIR website for folks?
www.fairus, that's FAIRUS.org. Kevin, I love you, man.
I love you, brother. You're a true believer. We appreciate you all at FAIR.
All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, our great friend Dan Stein joining us. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio.
The ruling by a California judge means DACA will remain in effect while the fight over the Obama-era program plays out in court. People already approved for DACA protections will be allowed to renew work permits before they expire. The Justice Department says it will appeal the ruling, calling DACA an unlawful circumvention of Congress. Lawmakers had been facing a March deadline to find a fix for the program, which the president suspended last fall. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
And coming up, Congressman Labrador will join us. Before that, we go to Hank in Boise at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Hank.
Good morning. When I used to listen to politics avidly, KBOI used to have a show on the legislature, and it was the 39th legislature. And Robert E. Smiley was the governor at the time, and he was proposing a $92 million state budget. When I listened to your thing earlier today at $3.6 billion, and I realized what a change. And also that legislature was the last one that met biannually. Every legislature since 1965 has met every year. But back then they met once every 2 years. And Smiley, in later years, said that was the biggest thing in terms of exploding the state budget, was having the legislature meet every year, because every time a legislature meets, they vote to spend money.
Well, it's good for Dave Beater's wallet.
Yeah, well, Dave Beater does a real good job of spending money. And
it's great for the city of Boise because you have everybody coming in, and it's great, it's wonderful, it's outstanding. On the other hand, let's face it, why not just do it every 2 years?
Well, I would think that they need to go, but the argument is that they can't get they have to go on 2-year budget projections, which they say they can't do. I think they can do it, but that's another point besides. Getting back to your main point on the judge thing, I wouldn't be surprised if there was coordination between the Democrat leadership and some Democratic authority groups to put the suit in. The judges can't by themselves unless there's a lawsuit or somebody requesting an injunction, and I think that they went job shopping to get the right judge to issue this injunction. And also, I also would point out that that the Democrats were in a lose-lose situation. If forced to, they would give up DACA in order to stop the wall, because it's essential for the Democrats in order to take over Texas and other states to flood these states like California with illegal immigrants. And if it came down to it, their compassion for the children would go to the wayside in terms of stopping the wall. And this was from their standpoint, a lose-lose situation from a number of standpoints. So they needed to stop Trump's momentum at that point, and I think there was coordination in this judge's decision.
Yes, the timing is suspicious at best.
Yes, that's exactly it. I don't think the timing is by any case a coincidence. So that's my thoughts today.
Hank, we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Traffic and weather together at KIDO. And Kevin Miller in the morning. Coming up next, we'll speak with Congressman Labrador. We'll take your calls on immigration, DACA, and the wall. You're listening to Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie. And to Congressman Labrador, live from Washington, D.C. Congressman, good morning.
Good morning.
Boy, I'm sure you're already missing Idaho already.
I am missing Idaho already. I like my interview better when I was in studio, so which meant that I was at home, sleeping in my own bed, actually spending time with my family. But it's we're doing some good work out here in Washington, D.C. as well.
Boy, what a contrast to life in Idaho to what you went through with the president, the leaders of the Democrats and the Republicans, and you and the media all watching this meeting on something that you have been a champion of, and that is protecting American sovereignty with the DACA and the wall meeting.
Absolutely. That was an interesting meeting. I don't think I've ever seen anything like this, and I wasn't watching it on TV. I was actually there. It was interesting to watch the media stood there and ask questions for 55 minutes. I don't think that has ever happened where you have a full-on negotiation. This wasn't a scripted meeting. This was the president at his best, trying to talk to the Republicans and the Democrats. The Democrats really at their best, trying to pin the president down on their hopes and aspirations. And the president kept saying, no, you don't understand what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that we need security, we need the wall. I'm willing to work with you on these kids, but we need to make sure that we get this right. It was a fascinating hour and a half. It actually lasted almost 2 hours, 55 minutes on camera, and then the cameras left. And the rest of the meeting was pretty much the same way that what you saw on TV.
Congressman Labrador, what's at stake here?
What's at stake is the future of the immigration system and the safety of the American people. And this is where I get a little bit concerned. This is, all yesterday what the media could talk about was DACA. DACA is not really the number one priority that I have or the number one priority that the president has or the American people have. What we have is our number one priority is to make America safe, make America strong, and make the border secure. And this is an opportunity for us because, as you know, we need to pass a bill out of the House and out of the Senate. In the Senate, you need 9 Democrats to vote with us in order to pass any legislation. So the fact that we have this issue on DACA gives us a golden opportunity to get the things that we need on legal immigration, on securing our border, on preventing future illegal immigration via interior enforcement. That's really what this should be about and what the conversation should be about. That's why today I'm introducing a bill with the other chairman of the Judiciary and Homeland Security committees that does exactly that. It ends the diversity visa program. It ends chain migration. It reduces overall immigration levels. It builds the wall. It advances technology. It secures ports of entries. It makes E-Verify mandatory. It cracks down on sanctuary city. It does all the things that we need to do. And we say, hey, Democrats, if you're willing to work with us on these things, we are willing to give you legal status for the 800,000 kids that are here under DACA. But in my opinion, if they're not willing to be with us on the same page on those security measures, then there's no deal on the DACA population.
Well, Congressman Labrador, as an attorney and an elected official, a congressman, what did you make of the court in California prohibiting the president's DACA order, even though that DACA itself has been, President Obama said it's unconstitutional? I mean, I'm sure one day they'll have a class in law school about the whole idea of it. Yeah.
Well, it was outrageous, number one. And I hope it's a reminder to the president that the left does not play fair. That one of the things that I saw yesterday from the president is he did some of the same things that I did when I first came to Congress. When you come to Congress for the first time, you come with, maybe some hope that you can negotiate with the other side. And it's because I was used to Democrats in Idaho. When you talk to Democrats in Idaho and you tell them, I'm willing to work with you on an issue, they're willing to give a little and we give a little, right? That's how legislation works. But here, I've realized over the last 8 years, that, especially on immigration, when you're dealing with Democrats, for them it's all or nothing. If you noticed yesterday, all they could talk about was they wanted a clean DACA bill, which was a complete joke. I mean, for them to even start their negotiations at that point, it's just a complete joke. Well, what the president needs to understand is that the Democrats are not really some willful participants in a clean negotiation. What they're going to do is they're going to try to get their way or the highway. I think one of your previous callers said something about this, that they're willing to throw the DACA kids out the door, out the window, if there's a border wall, if there's all these different things. If they continue those negotiations, I think we have a problem. And that's the same thing the president needs to understand with the judiciary. Every single move he makes on immigration, the left-wing branch of the judiciary is going to continue to get in his way again and again and again. The Supreme Court, I mean, for Pete's sake, the Supreme Court already said that DACA was unconstitutional. And this judge said that the president doesn't have an authority to end the program. Think about that. The Supreme Court says it's unconstitutional, and you have a low-level judge saying that the president can't end the program, can't do anything, what he needs to do to stop providing benefits to these kids that were granted benefits unconstitutionally. I mean, that's just outrageous. And the president needs to understand that the left plays hardball, and I think he needs to negotiate. What he did yesterday was extremely important, but he also needs to understand that these people on the left, they're not going to play fair, and we need to make sure that we stand our ground and protect the American people.
Congressman Labrador joining us here at KIDO Talk Radio. Congressman, does this ease the pressure, as Dan Stein was talking about, and a lot of people in the hour before were talking about? Does this ease the pressure on both sides to get this resolved, this court ruling in California?
Well, I don't know what the implications are going to be, because I think the administration is going to appeal this decision. I don't think a court should tell the administration when they can end the program or not. So I don't think we've heard the end of this. I think, as you know, the Ninth Circuit is going to do what the Ninth Circuit does.
Right.
The Ninth Circuit is going to agree with this judge, but the administration is going to take it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and they need to keep fighting on this, because the worst thing that could happen is for the president or for a court to change their deadline. We have a deadline of March 5th. That's when the pressure is on Congress to get something done. If we move the deadline, further, and we move the deadline to a later date, then we're not going to fix the problem, and there's not going to be the pressure to actually get the immigration reforms that we need to. What your listeners need to understand, without this pressure on DACA, we're not going to get the diversity visa program to end. We're not going to get the chain migration to end, because we don't have the 60 votes that we need in the Senate. This is the pressure that we need right now, so we can get those things that we've been wanting to get on legal immigration reform, on interior enforcement, on securing our border, on refocusing our legal immigration on skills. That's such an important. Imagine if we were able to get these things. That would be the most significant change we have done to immigration in 50 years. To change our immigration system to a skills-based system, to get rid of this chain migration issue, to reduce immigration levels, to increase immigration for the skilled workers that we need in the United States. This is an important moment, and I don't think we should be frittering away and moving deadlines. I think we need to be firm on the deadline. The president needs to say that if by that date we don't have a deal, he's going to start deporting the people that are here, that come into contact with immigration, and that's the only pressure that we're going to be able to apply so the Democrats can come to the table in good faith.
Boy, that's going to take a Churchillian-like effort, because, as you know, Congressman Labrador, the media and the Democrats will be going crazy.
They will. But the important thing about this is not something that has to happen. We don't have to grant status to people that are here illegally. I think the American people are good. The American people understand that about fairness, and they're willing to treat these kids that are here illegally fairly. They have no problem with that as long as we secure our borders. And I think that's the the number one reason the President of the United States was elected is because he made a promise to the American people that he was going to secure our borders. And I think if he does that, I've always said this. You know, you and I have had this conversation over 8 years. I've always said that if we secure our borders, the American people are just and fair, and they're willing to deal with the illegal population fairly. But that's not by putting them first. It's by dealing with the border security issues first, by dealing with interior enforcement first, and then the American people would be willing to treat them in a fair way.
Congressman Labrador, let's get back to what you're proposing today here at KIDO Talk Radio so people in Idaho and the Treasure Valley know what you're proposing, your solution to this issue is.
Yeah, so as I said, it has three components. It refocuses legal immigration on skills needed in the United States. So that's why we end the diversity visa program. We end the chain migration. You know, chain migration is when we bring people not because of their skills, but we bring people to the United States based solely on family relationships. It reduces the overall immigration levels. It increases immigration levels for skilled workers. So it gives some of the visas that we're now giving to family members, it gives them actually to skilled workers. So it increases that number. It helps with agricultural workers, something that's very important to Idaho. It creates a workable agricultural guest worker program, and it adds visa security. So it sends additional ICE agents to the high-risk embassies overseas so we can more properly vet immigrants. One of the issues that we've talked about for the last couple of years is the improper vetting of people coming to the United States. This bill fixes that. Then number two, it secures our border. So it builds the border wall. It advances technologies. It secures the ports of entry. As you know, 40% of the problems that we have in the United States with illegal immigration are actually people who entered legally, and a lot of the problems that we have with drugs and other crimes that are happening because they're coming through the border, they're actually coming through the legal ports of entry, not through illegal means. So we actually increase the security in ports of entry. We added 5,000 additional Border Patrol agents and 5,000 CBP officers. It uses the National Guard. This is important. It authorizes the Guard to provide aviation and intelligence support for the border security operations, and it requires the full implementation of the entry-exit visa system. And then finally, it prevents future illegal immigration via interior enforcement. So it cracks down on sanctuary cities. It facilitates cooperation with law enforcement, with local law enforcement. It puts into law Kate's Law, which I think you have talked about many times on your show. It deals with asylum fraud, and it makes for the first time a visa overstay a crime. You know, when you hear Democrats talk about how illegal immigration is not illegal because it's not a crime, what they mean is that the people who entered legally are technically not committing a crime if they overstay because it's not a federal crime to overstay your visa. It's a violation of your civil of your civil agreement with the government, but it's not a crime. We actually make it a crime to overstay your visa in the United States. So there's a lot of changes to the law in this bill. It's a strong enforcement bill. And what we say is if the Democrats are on the same page with us on this, we're willing to legalize the DACA population with 3-year renewable visas. Now, this is really important. It doesn't give them a pathway, a new pathway to citizenship. It just allows them to stay in the United States with 3-year renewable visas, and it allows them to get in the back of the line for the current citizenship programs.
Congressman, a final thought here, and this is unique not only to Idaho but to other states. I know you're very sensitive to the farm community, the ranchers, the agrarian folks that you've worked with for years to try and develop a workable solution because, again, they have their issues with folks coming in, migrant workers in and out, and they need a good workforce as well. I know you're sensitive to their needs.
Absolutely, and what this program, part of this bill is it does include an agricultural worker solution. One of the issues we have in Idaho that a lot of people don't seem to understand is that the dairy industry, for example, has no workable visa. There is no visa available for somebody who works at a dairy. That's why you have a large number of people in the dairy industry that are working illegally. So what this program does, what this bill does, is it actually creates a visa program for the agricultural industry. It improves our current agricultural industry visa program, and it adds the dairy industry to that agricultural worker visa program. And I think that's something that's important to Idaho. It's something important to the future of the United States. So I think that's one of the good things about this bill. It modernizes our immigration system, and it makes it the system that we need for the 21st century. We're currently working on an immigration system from the 1950s and 1960s. And what we're doing with all this is we're modernizing the immigration system. We're making America safe and secure, and we're saving, we're protecting the sovereignty of our nation by showing that there is a legal way to do these things and to prevent future illegal immigration.
Congressman Labrador, we appreciate you making time. I know you're going to have a busy day, and I know you're doing the work there and the work here. So, again, we really appreciate your time this morning on this issue.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
You too, sir. Bye-bye. There we have it, Congressman Labrador giving us the skinny inside with the president yesterday and talking about how immigration reform and the whole resolution of this will impact people working in Idaho. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Obviously, this DACA issue is going to continue. You heard from Congressman Labrador on this. You've heard from the president what to do next. 580-5436, 580-KIDO when we're talking about a solution. Obviously, we don't want people to lose their homes, but there have been many Americans, many Idahoans that have been losing their homes day in and day out because they've lost their wages. They've lost their jobs. They've lost the opportunity. And quite frankly, when you take a look at some of these states that are giving in-state tuition to people that are living here illegally, it's insane. And those of you that are getting ready to or have paid for college as an out-of-state student, how in the world can you take a look at an out-of-state student and charge them tuition? In other words, let's say you're from California and you want to go to Idaho or Boise State. You've got to pay more money, right? You've got to pay more money. But in California, I believe, and I know this is in other places east of the Great River, that if you're here illegally, you get in-state tuition. In some cases, they actually give you free tuition. That's right. You don't have to pay at all. So, we're going to laugh because who wants to get upset? The sense of frustration is just insane when we're thinking about this. I mean, here you are, you're paying taxes, you're paying for your kid, or if you're the kid himself or herself, you're going to school and you're paying, and you've got these incredible student loans. And you have the state that you love, that you were born in, subsidizing people that are here illegally. It has to stop. 580-5436, 580-KIDO. We'd love to hear what you have to say next. But first, let's get you to work.
People already approved for DACA protections will be allowed to renew work permits before they expire. The Justice Department says it will appeal the ruling, calling DACA an unlawful circumvention of Congress. Lawmakers had been facing a March deadline to find a fix for the program, which the president suspended last fall. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
And Kevin Miller in the morning here. As we talked about with Dan Stein, we've talked about with Hank and Congressman Labrador. You don't have to be a lawyer to figure this one out, okay? Here's the question that I have. Here's the question for everybody. The Supreme Court and even President Obama said DACA is unconstitutional. It's against the law. But because we're touchy-feely, we're compassionate, and we want to elevate the one side, one political side, the Democratic side political vote base, we're going to let this program continue. We're going to create this program. Okay, the president says, the current president, Donald Trump says, nope, we're done. But we're going to give you till March. So then all of a sudden, we have a federal judge saying, no, you don't have the authority. So again, I don't know if I have to be, again, an attorney, Steve Roush, to sit back and say, how can a judge tell the executive of the country that he can't eliminate a law that was unconstitutional and illegal to begin with? And it comes down to what Bill O'Reilly used to say and what we try to do here each and every morning. Who's looking out for us? Well, we're doing our very best to look out for you. Fox News next. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.